Oh gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Welcome to LMDtv. I'm Ashwini Vethakan. Joining us this week on Talking Business is the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Saliya Pieris. Welcome to the show, Saliya. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Our first question for you this evening, Saliya. Could you outline how digitalization of services has changed Sri Lanka's legal ecosystem?
Right. So digitization of services is, I think, an ongoing process where our system is court system is concerned. There is a huge automation and digitization project being planned by the Ministry of Justice, and which will see in time to come where the courts will be digitized and automated. With the pandemic, there have been virtual hearings in courts. Today, the Supreme Court takes up what we call mention matters virtually. During the pandemic, the Court of Appeal had took up matters virtually. There are provisions which have been made in both the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal rules, as well as a COVID Special Provisions Act, which was brought this year to provide for digital hearings. But of course, when you talk of digitization and automation, it's a long range. There are a number of matters which have to be looked at, and I think it is an ongoing process.
Now, Saliya, among areas such as climate change, data privacy, and workplace issues, where do we see a growing number of lawsuits in the country?
Well, on climate change, or what we call environment, there have been certain organizations who have filed action relating to different aspects. So sometimes relating to protection of elephants, relating to for instance, forests. Certain circulars have been challenged. We have had certain landmark cases. One was many years ago called the Eppavala phosphate case, where the court set out the doctrine relating to public trust, and also the court set out the need for a sustainable development, but at the same time to follow the proper processes. And I think that was one particular landmark case. It's called the Bulankulame case, which was related to the Eppavala phosphate mines, and the court. So there have been numerous cases where the courts have intervened in respect of protecting the environment. But in relation to data protection, I think we still have to have a proper law in place. There is a proposed bill, and it is hoped that it will see the light of day. And related to privacy, also I think our legal regime has to be strengthened.
The US Department of State's Country Report on Human Rights Practices in Sri Lanka notes significant human rights issues in the country. In your opinion, what are the most pressing issues being addressed?
Well, I think the Bar Association also has addressed this issue on torture and the need to curb custodial torture. That is, I think, foremost. And day in and day out, we hear of reports, or we see videos sometimes of police officers beating up people. And I think that is one issue which needs to be addressed. Coupled with that, there is the issue of custodial deaths, where there have been instances where people in custody have been killed, and the police have sometimes offered an explanation saying that they have been killed while they have been being taken to search for weapons, so on. The Supreme Court has, in several key cases, held that the state has a duty to protect those in their custody. So I think where human rights is concerned, that is one key factor. Similarly, I think the need to protect the right to dissent is absolutely important. One needs to ensure that the freedom of speech and expression is protected, and that the right to dissent, the freedom of peaceful assembly, those are protected. COVID-19 has brought with it certain difficulties, but we know that whatever difficulties are there, still people have a right to dissent, the freedom of expression is also absolutely important. And of course, when you talk of human rights, the rule of law is absolutely important. It is necessary that the authorities ensure the existence of the rule of law. And so the rule of law will cover a whole number of issues. Equality, equal protection of the law, the applicability of the law to everyone. All these are covered by the rule of law. And the rule of law is contrasted with the rule of men. It is said, if it is the rule of law, there is consistency. Whereas if there in the absence of a rule of law, then you have communities, countries being governed by whims and fancies of persons. And that is not good for a society. So that is why the preservation of the rule of law, and part of the rule of law is preservation of fundamental rights that must be protected.
And on that note, we'll be going in for a short break. Welcome back as we continue our conversation with the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, Saliya Pieris. Now, Saliya, what regulations are in place to curtail hate speech on social media and how effective are these?
Well, so we have the ICCPR Act, which is one law which is in existence, but we do not, sometimes we find the ICCPR Act is sometimes used selectively by the authorities, and so that is not good, and also its provisions are rather draconian, especially provisions relating to bail. We do not have there are sections in the penal code relating to harassment, so on, but we do not have a comprehensive law relating to the hate speech on social media as such. So that is something perhaps which has to be looked into, but it must be done carefully, because you must not curb the freedom of expression. Of course, the freedom of expression ends where another person's rights are affected, or any incitement to violence, incitement to hate would mean that the freedom of expression is has its limitations or restrictions. So what is important is that there should be regulation, but nevertheless, there must be also consideration of protecting certain rights, and whatever restrictions are imposed must be reasonable and no more.
In your view, how can Sri Lanka's legal system be improved?
Well, I think there are a number of elements which I would think, but I think first and foremost that we have a system where there is respect for the rule of law, where people are entitled to their fundamental rights, including equality, the equal protection of the law. I think on a very practical side, one of the allegations against our system is the law's delays and the delay in justice being meted out. So whether it be in criminal cases where it takes a long period of time to conclude a criminal trial, or in civil cases where land matters take, sometimes land partition matters take years, sometimes decades. And then you have the commercial cases where investors feel that the court system is not conducive for them to resolve their disputes. So I think speedy and effective justice is an area which has to be looked at, and if we are looking at improving the legal system, I think that is a must. So all these things which we are talking of, law reform, digitization, these are for that purpose. So on the law reform side, I would say that some of our laws are rather archaic, and these need to change. So even for instance, family law in Sri Lanka, the law relating to divorce, that is one area which necessarily has to change. but not only, so there are a whole area, a number of areas of law which need to change. In fact, I think there is a law reform process being at the moment being carried out, which is initiated by the Ministry of Justice, and that is another area which I think it would be. But I think improving the legal system must be such that there is the average person must feel that they get justice if they seek recourse to the legal system, and that is, I think, absolutely important. On the other side, also, I think training, starting from training of law students, starting at universities, at Sri Lanka Law College, then continuing professional development for members of the legal profession, and of course, for judges also. I think those are areas which have to be looked at. There is a proposal which has been formulated to have a state-of-the-art judges judicial academy in Sri Lanka. So these are some of the things which I think would help to improve the system. We need to, where the legal profession is also concerned, we need to, the law is changing fast in the world. Today, in many parts of the world, you talk of artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, so many new areas. And I think those are some, I think we are lagging behind in some of those areas, and we need to look at this.
Our final question for this evening, Saliya. An appetite for flexible working has grown dramatically in the legal profession. How effective will this be in Sri Lanka?
Well, once again, I think with the pandemic, we have had to be flexible. But of course, as you know, if one talks about the court system, we are used to a certain particular way of working. But I think where members of the legal profession are concerned, their chamber work, meeting clients, so on, there is greater flexibility now. And you see the use of technology, especially this present technology we are using today, Zoom and so on. So I think there is an appetite, and there would have to be an appetite for flexibility. And this is something which is not only discussed here in Sri Lanka, but in other parts of the world also, where professionals are also looking at flexibility in their work schedules.
Well, this has been an interesting conversation, and I think we've all learned something new about the legal profession. Thank you for joining us on the show this evening, Saliya.
Thank you.
Coming up, we have the latest from Sri Lanka's cost of living. Stay tuned.
You love the feeling of being renewed. To stay beautiful every single day. To breathe just like we do. Because you are truly delicate, protecting the ones who've been with us through the years. With Sayalac Care, the only wood coating that truly protects you. Sayalac Wood Coatings from JAT.
Welcome back to the show, and here's an update from Sri Lanka's cost of living. The Pepper Cube Cost of Living Index for September recorded an increase of 1.3 points from the previous month to reach 87, rising for the second consecutive month. On a year-on-year basis, that is compared to the corresponding index of September 2020, the latest CLI reflects an increment of 8.9 points. Meanwhile, the gap between the CLI and the Colombo Consumer Price Index, or CCPI, continued to widen, which suggests that the household burden escalated to some extent in September. Of those consulted for Pepper Cube's exclusive monthly survey, 97%, up from 92% in the previous month, say that the cost of living for their families has risen to a moderate degree or otherwise over the last 12 months. Marking a decline from the previous month, 3% versus 5% in August, feel it remained the same, while there were no reports of a decrease in the cost of living. In addition, 87% compared to 84% in the previous month of survey participants believe that an escalation in the household burden is on the cards in the 12 months ahead. On the other hand, 3% of respondents anticipate a reduction in the cost of living during this period, while 9% say it will remain the same, and the balance 1% don't know or can't say. And when it comes to the ability of purchasing non-food goods and services by taking into consideration their cost of living, economic status and saving capacity, 76% down from 79% in the preceding month of the survey sample point to the likelihood of a negative outcome in the coming 12 months. Meanwhile, when looking at the economy of the country, the latest LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Index or BCI survey points to a dampening of the economy sentiment, as a mere 8% of respondents say the economy is likely to improve in the coming 12 months, down from 1 in 5 in September. On the other hand, the majority, 47% of survey participants, have a negative outlook and anticipate a deterioration in economic conditions during this period. Meanwhile, the balance 45% believe that the economy will stay the same. When it comes to long-term business prospects, however, 86% of those consulted by the pollsters anticipate an increase in sales volumes over the next 12 months. Additionally, only 5% believe the sales will decline during this time, and another 9% say they will remain the same. The outlook for the short term has also improved, with 43% of the survey sample expecting sales volumes to improve in the 3 months ahead, up from 25% in September. However, the majority, 50%, are of the opinion that sales will stay the same the next 3 months. As for the investment climate in the country, sentiment has deteriorated in the vast majority, with 80% versus 70% in September of business people describing conditions as poor or very poor. When it comes to employment, the share of companies looking to expand their workforce in the next 6 months has dropped to 8% from 18% in September. On the contrary, the majority, 86% of those surveyed, say they will maintain their staff numbers, while 5% point to the possibility of retrenchments. And that's all the time we have for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.